Hello and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me as always, Phil Blackman. Phil, how's it going, man?
Bro, it's going good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We're recording this New Year's Eve, and it will come out on Monday. Monday is the 2nd, right? Yeah, the
Monday
2nd.
is the 2nd.
Monday
New
is the
Year's
2nd.
Day.
So it'll come out Monday. So Happy New Year, everyone.
New Year's Day was yesterday in the future. Welcome.
Yes. That'll be 2 days from now
Bro,
for us.
I have fallen apart. I have toppled down.
Phil's wrestling toys are out on display now.
All my toys. All my
Was that Jake the
toys.
Snake Roberts, Phil?
It was Jake the Snake, bro.
Jake the Snake Roberts.
Dude, I met Jake the Snake in person, obviously.
Jake the Snake looks like Jake the Snake. Jake the Snake looks like my mom's ex-boyfriend who spent 10 years in jail during the 90s while I was growing up. He looks just like him.
Jake the Snake is he's on a not a ventilator, he's on an oxygen tank. So everywhere he walks, he has to be on oxygen. It sucks.
That's terrible.
It's not great.
Yeah. With that on that dark news, I want to just give
welcome to
everybody
2022. Jake the Snake's on an oxygen tank.
Jeez. Yeah, I'm sorry to start your year off with that information. If this is the first podcast you're checking out this year. That said, you should check out our other podcasts from earlier in the year. We've had a lot of great content in the past. We're not going to do the looking back on 2022 episode because there wasn't a whole lot to talk about. We're actually going to.
There was plenty to talk about, but just listen to the episodes instead.
Yeah. Check those episodes out. That is the better take. So
some behind the scenes action on this on me trying to have a new setup that just completely falls apart.
Yeah. I actually need to also fix my setup real fast. I didn't turn the lights on. Gotta have the lights, right? Boom.
As you can see,
I'm a little closer to me.
I'm trying to work the lighting. We're trying to have a better 22, and yet here we are.
just hacking it together all at the last second. I did want to say I did want to give a quick shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. If you want to support the cast, we really do appreciate that. Even $1 helps. You can go over to our Patreon at patreon.com/eternaldurdles. We'll be doing a lot more this year with that stuff because we've kind of finally gotten to a point where I think we should start giving a little bit of value back beyond just the podcast. And one way we're doing that is we're including everybody that is a Patreon supporter in our weekly raffle for one of the items from, let me grab it here. I've got it right here from the Secret Lair Advent calendar thing. So actually we're going to pull one out right now, and someone's going to win from last week. Actually, I'm just going to shuffle these up. You're seeing me shuffle them up right in front of you here.
Oh, this is the moment. This is the big moment. Is there a tabernacle in here? Is there a tabby?
No, there is a Chromox. Chromox
is probably the big one, right?
So here we go. I'm just going to pull right out of the middle here. Last week's winner is going to win 2007.
Wow.
So we got that going there.
What's 2007? What's the card?
I don't even know, man. I feel like it's that much more fun. 2007. Let's find out real fast. 2007 Advent calendar. I guess I can just open it, right?
Partying.
I'm gonna have to open it anyhow. I'm just gonna open it. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna open it right in front of the camera. All right, here we go. It is Ponder, a foil Ponder. So
that's a big get, honestly.
That's a good get, actually. Yeah. So that's gonna go to last week's winner. Next week's winner we will announce next week, and I'll actually have a name and stuff. We have to pull that, but that the person that commented on our last week's episode ended up winning that out of all of our Patreon supporters as well. So you're always included on there if you comment, and you're always included on there if you if you add even $1 onto Patreon and support us on Patreon. So with that out of the way, I also want to say quickly, please like and subscribe to the video, to the YouTube channel. We're trying to hit 400 subscribers, so it'd be awesome if you could do that. And with that out of the way, Phil, I think we can end the housekeeping segment of the show, and we can talk about our topic this week.
Yeah, bro, let's talk about it as the sub game of my setup continues.
Yes.
I love me a sub game. I do love me a sub game.
We're gonna take a cue from MTGGoldfish's Joe Dyer, and we're gonna talk about the Legacy Roundtable that he had, and I wasn't on it. No hate there, but I'm gonna answer these questions as well. Phil was on it. You can find Phil's answers, but I think he'll regurgitate some of those answers here today as well. And we're gonna start off with
what did you think of what do you think about roundtables in general? Do you like these roundtable articles?
I love the community building that the roundtable articles present. They're just so long. Sometimes I'm reading a lot of the same answer too, which, I mean, look, if you're pulling people for roundtable, that's kind of part of the thing, is like you have to just assume that like everyone is going to answer these questions, and they're going to, people want to get their opinions out, so they're going to take a long time. So the article ends up going from like what a normal article looks like is like this much, and then Joe's articles, because he adds so much good information, like you should go over to MTGGoldfish and see Joe's articles because they're excellent. But he always adds like a lot of like legacy metagame information, gives you a breakdown of some of the new decks, some of the trends he's seeing, stuff like that. So you get like 3 articles in every one of Joe's articles already, but a normal article is like this long. The roundtables are like always just like, they're off the charts long. So it's a lot of reading. It's always so much more fun when you know the people to read these articles anyhow. So I really appreciated going in and seeing like you and Roland in there. So that was a blast. Roland Chang was on the roundtable, so that was a blast reading that on my car ride home on a couple days ago from New Hampshire.
Yeah, I agree that it can feel like those articles get a little bit long if a lot of people all have the same opinion, because then it feels really the same. But I always enjoy reading.
Stop. Like I like the articles. I love a roundtable. I love a community event.
Yeah, I too. I really enjoy the roundtable articles just to see where collectively the format is at, and like where everybody's heads are at.
Yeah.
To see if to see the little discrepancies between where people's mindsets are. And we'll get into that. We'll get into it.
Yeah. So let's pop off the first question after I get my glasses all cleaned up here. We're not sponsored by Zenny.com, but you can get some nice glasses there. Anyhow, number 1, what are your current thoughts on the legacy format? Are you having fun? Is the format healthy?
All right, Zach, let's use this opportunity. This is your entry into the roundtable.
Right. So right now, I personally think that the format is like it's teetering on the edge of fun and like starting to get stale. Like I think that's like it's still fun to me. I still think the format is fun, but it's teetering on the edge of like staleness and fun. Even with initiative
entering.
Well, I see. That's actually one of the reasons why I think that, because if initiative didn't exist, I think it would be teetering towards completely stale, because at least initiative is somewhat new. Otherwise, we would just literally be looking at the same decks we've seen for almost what, like 9 months now. Like 8-cast is the newest deck, and not much has changed in anybody's 75 aside from like a Pyromancer or an Iconoclast here or there. It's just like Blue-Red Delver and like one of the decks I'm not seeing that I saw back in January of last year before Kappa Cannoneer got introduced was I haven't seen much Death and Taxes, like 80 card Death and Taxes with Yurion. So to me, I hate Death and Taxes, and that skews me more towards fun, a more fun format. I had a blast at what's called Eternal Weekend, so I think that sort of skews me back towards fun as well, because I hadn't gotten to play in person. So being able to play in person skewed me back towards that. My current thoughts on the format, I think the format is fine. And that's like on the like on a scale of like bad, like unplayable, bad, fair, fine, good, and like great. It's kind of in the middle, right? And then is the format healthy? I think no, the format is unfortunately not healthy right now. but I think that a lot of that is skewed from what you're seeing on Magic Online, which is a discussion Phil and Nate and I had this week about like how I think Magic Online is sort of a net negative for the community, but it's a necessary evil.
Yeah, I just don't think the format's ever been healthy. Like, I don't think.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah.
But my comment here was that, you know, is the format fun? If you're, I'm playing decks I enjoy, so it's fun.
Yeah.
At least for me, it's fun. But like, is the format healthy? I feel like is always a question that never exists meaningfully in any helpful space, because the format is never healthy. There has never been a time outside of when we look back at fond nostalgia formats that we consider a format. Nobody has ever in the present been like the format is healthy, unless they're looking at very specific metrics where they're like the format is healthy if XYZ is fulfilled, like if there's enough deck diversity, or if there's enough if games go past a certain amount, or if a bunch of different kind of, if aggro, combo, and controller all represent, like whatever the metric is to determine healthy, like maybe the format is healthy, quote quote, in that environment. But there's never been a time where collectively the community has just been like, yeah, Legacy is fucking great right now, no changes, nobody wants anything gone.
If you could pick a quote unquote heyday that you think that the format was at its most healthy, what would you choose?
Bro, I feel like I hear constantly there's this nostalgia for like old, like Stoneblade 3-color-esque stuff when Delver was still in 3 colors and Stoneblade was around in variations. And
I mean, that's about what I would think is that like 2013, 2014 era, like pre Legacy.
Everybody loves this era, and I'm like,
I mean, I don't say that I love it, but I think that was probably the most healthy that the format was, at least in my experience. Was that for me, that was very early into my Legacy experience.
Bro, and then there were times like in the healthy environment where like cards that everybody hated, like there were cards like nobody enjoyed playing with or against Hymn to Turok. Let's be real. Nobody enjoyed having a hymn pointed at them, you know? But now we're all like, oh my God, like bring me back the days where we could nickel and dime each other and go in games that grind long. Like,
yeah.
I mean, for some players, maybe like there's never been I can't, at least for me. I mean, the question of like, is the format healthy? Healthy is a non-existent, meaningless word in our format. It means nothing, right? Like, like the metrics for what health is change based on whoever's reading that question, and it's totally interpretive. And like that's fine given the opinion that you're looking for, but in terms of like, what are we looking to achieve by determining whether or not the format is healthy? Like, if we want a healthy format, we need to remove all of the shit that is so toxic and busted, right? Like,
start with the player base.
The whole thing about like an initiative taking over the format, like initiative takes over the format because there are soul lands and busted fast mana, and it's like, okay, are we blaming the fast mana, which is like the enabler of the problem, or are we blaming the problem, which is that they're designing for a 4-player format that's destroying 1v1, destroying, quote quote? Like it's all like how you view it, and that isn't going that doesn't result in any meaningful deterministic change in any direction at all. Like it doesn't do anything. So I answered the question in the roundtable. This is not me dunking on the questions, by the way. I love these roundtables. I hope they continue and I get to do more of them. Like, I love these roundtables. I love seeing where the community's head's at. For questions like this, though, they need to be we need to be more pointed as to, is the format healthy? And then in brackets, define what we mean by healthy, or what we as a community are striving for in terms of what health means. Because otherwise, we're all just speaking past each other.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. That was 3 questions for question 1. Question 2 does kind of at least ask you to elaborate on that a bit. And it's, what changes would you make in the current format, bans, unbans, and why?
Go for it.
This to me, reading through that everyone's answers, I thought they were super interesting, and also kind of a lot of people were telling on themselves. But I thought it was funny, the stuff, like there wasn't a lot of discussion about unbans, and we'll do that because I think that's probably going to be one of our first like series for this year, is to go right back through the ban list and see what we think now after like a year of doing that before, what could be unbanned if any of our opinions changed. But for me, I still think that like unbanned wise, I still think that like we could get away with Necropotence. I mean, I'm always gonna say that I think Necropotence could come back. It'll allow mono black decks a chance to be like a thing. Do I think that's super healthy for the format? I don't know. Again, who cares? The format's not healthy. You heard it from Phil, you know. And then ban wise, I mean, I think the change that I would make to the format would be the thing that me and Phil have been talking about, is that like they need to errata how initiative works and create a new dungeon for 1v1 play. I think that's the only real change that I would make right now, and I'd see how that works. And then I would, the other change I would make to the format is that Wizards has to go back seriously every 3 months and be like, okay, do we need to make changes for real? Like we need to know if there's going to be real changes. And the one way to do that is by creating a committee of legacy players that would do that. And I think that that's something that needs to be done and hasn't been done and should have been done a long time ago.
I think that the caveat, I'm not so sure about the longer that I've sat on the idea of the legacy committee or the legacy panel, similar to the Pauper panel, I move further, but every time I think about it, I feel like I move further and further away from it. And I think that if somebody is going to be on the panel,
I now wish Nate were here, because Nate and I had a great phone conversation about this the other day. But let's continue.
Nate, if you're listening, you're free to hop on as we're speaking right now. Hopefully you call us in the next 10 minutes and are like, I want to hop on this podcast that I know that you guys are doing.
Yeah. Let's take a moment to give Nate his space, just in case he does pop in.
Yeah, just in case. Let's put his headshot up. I feel like I move further and further away from the panel. And I think that it's just because I don't think I would want to play in competitive events against players who I know have meaningful control or meaningful sway on how that format looks. So similar to how if you were to work at Wizards, you can't, like, if you work at Wizards and have inside information on certain cards or certain things, you can't compete in sanctioned competitive events.
Well, that's changed a bit now, but it's not the exact same as it used to be, but it has changed a little bit.
I think if there was a panel, I think that the panel would need, like, you could do, like, I think maybe do a rotating panel and have people come in. But I think that if you're on the panel, I don't think you should be able to play in sanctioned comp REL events.
I think you shouldn't be able to top 8.
Wow.
You can certainly play. You should be able to play, because you need, just like the reason why that is a bad rule for people who work at Wizards, it's a bad rule for people that want to affect a format, because they're not getting real experience in the format or with the game, which was insane to me that Wizards would be like, you can't play the game if you're going to work for us. That's wild.
I'm not saying that you're not able to play. I'm saying that if you sit across from somebody in a comp REL event and they have control over whether or not a card, or they have influence over, like, meaningful influence over what cards go and what cards stay, I think that is a power discrepancy. That's a power dynamic that I don't think should be introduced to however many players are on the table. You know what I mean? In the
I do know what you mean, but I don't agree.
I think that, like, if you are on the panel for 6 months, you are willingly going on to the panel in service to the community, to hear that feedback, to be the person, to be one of the deputies that people give their feedback to. You then aggregate that feedback into meaningful conversations with the other people who are on the panel that have also aggregated a bunch of feedback. And then you collectively decide what recommendations you would make to WotC. But in order to do that, I think that to remove bias, you should not be able to be in competitive events where, if, you know, the rationale for that, in my mind, would be if you have a panel and you have 10 players on the panel and seven of them are competitive Delver players, right?
Yes.
I don't
well,
want
I think one of the big litmus tests is if you are the type of person who would make your deck better but make the format worse, you kind of shouldn't be on the panel to begin with.
You shouldn't be on the panel, but I'm saying that, like, I think that you need to remove you just need to remove that type of
like, I'm not going to be like,
oh, we need to ban
everything until Death Shadow gets better. That's insane. Or like until Infect is playable.
No, of course. I'm not going off the deep end. I'm saying that we need, like, and this is a reason, part of why I'm like off of the idea of at the moment I'm off the idea of a panel, is I feel like there wouldn't be any, like, you would need, I think you would need to remove any semblance of like insider bias.
Yeah.
And I think the way that you would do that is just to make it so that any recommendations that you make aren't necessarily going to affect you positively or negatively. You are neutral to the recommendations and are doing it objectively based on community feedback and health of the format, looking at all of the data and all of the community's response as a whole. You know, I don't know if that's helpful, but like, yeah. If I were on the panel and I'm, you know, it's like, I also, if I were on the panel, wouldn't want anybody to be like, oh yeah, Phil obviously is going to just be advocating for Sensei's Divining Top to come back, you know, because of all the arguments where it's like, I don't think Sensei's Divining Top should be gone on power level reasons. It's gone on dexterity reasons, but formats are good, but tournaments already go to time even without it. It's not like it extended it at all. Like, tournaments still run as slow as they ever did. You know what I mean? But it's like, if I were on the panel, it's like, well, I'm a known advocate for wanting Sensei's Top to come off the ban list because it's what I like to do, and I don't think it should be there in the first place. Same thing with Deathrite Shaman, right? But that's in order for me, like, if I'm like, yes, please get it off, please get the shit off the ban list, and then I can play it again in my event coming up next month, like, that erodes transparency and trust with whoever is giving me feedback, right?
I think the other real issue for me is that this gives, so with one of the reasons I think why the rules committee doesn't do as many bans as they should is because they don't want to come off looking like they're manipulating the secondary market. And I think in Commander it's less, you're maybe on a broad scale less likely to really spike cards because of that. But if you're a rules committee person and you, for like Legacy, right, and you get to make those decisions, you have a hand in that. And let's say, Phil, you want Sensei's Divining Top to come off, but you also bought like 700 counterbalances beforehand. I think that's the sort of thing. That's my biggest worry, right? Like, is that someone is going to manipulate the secondary market, and to me, that is the same as cheating. Like, that's cheating at life. You know,
hey guys, maybe people in Congress who control where the market moves shouldn't be able to buy and invest stock.
I know.
Maybe they shouldn't be allowed to do it. Maybe the people who control that stuff shouldn't be in control of benefiting off of it, right?
Maybe their significant others shouldn't either. That's a world that we don't want to be in. I think that the rules committee offers a very large amount of possible corruption that I truly don't like. So I think that it is a double-edged sword, but I still think that we should have one. I just think that there are questions that need to be worked out. To that end, question number 2, Phil, would you make any bans or unbans?
Let me just round off the last thing we're saying. Rather than needing a format panel of, like, the whole reason that they had a Pauper panel, right, was because they said that nobody in the building played or was aware of Pauper, like, in any meaningful way that they could make decisions that made sense. And so they just allocated Gavin to, like, I think it's Gavin to, like, lead the Pauper panel and then have people come in. So they essentially outsourced their responsibilities to other people, right? Whereas they said that they didn't do it for Legacy because they said that they have people in the building that do play Legacy, that are aware of the format, that are in tune with what's going on. Whether or not we agree, we don't, because we don't know necessarily who the people are. But I think that if they
what data they're using.
But I think that, like, aside from transparency stuff, I think if they just had the panel be whoever those people in the building are, that way people knew where to aggregate feedback.
Yeah.
Right. Like, instead of just like yelling into the void on Twitter or like bothering people who aren't involved in that. Like, I know, like, I have asked Gavin a bunch of questions regarding bans. Like I remember I tweeted him earlier in the year. I was like, hey, what do you consider the pillars of the format that are untouchable by bans? And he said, well, nothing is actually untouchable. Everything is reasonably touchable. But at the same time, there are things that the format is that are sort of baked into the format. This was back when Days was the topic of discussion. I was like, are we wasting our time talking about this, or is Days considered a pillar of the format the way that everybody has said that Forcible, Wasteland, and Brainstorm are, and that will never be touched because that's the quote identity of the format? I hate that stuff, but like, you know what I mean? And he was like, well, nothing is untouchable, but then he also said, but I'm not part of the team that would be involved in those decisions. And I'm like, well, I sure would love to know who is. And I feel like that would just be the panel within the building. You know what I mean? Anyway, so moving on to bans and unbans. Do you want to take a crack at it first? Go for it. I have a whole paragraph or whatever.
I gave you my answers. I said we would unban Necropotence.
That's it? One and done? You're on Necro and that's it?
Unban Necropotence for now.
Unban Necropotence for now. Cool. Any but no bans. So you're on the no bans.
I'm on no bans, but I would strongly consider removing AI or Murktide.
AI. Wow.
Or Murktide.
Guy wants to get rid of artificial intelligence. He's at it.
Yeah.
He's over it.
EI or Murktide. So I'd be on board with getting rid of those or both. Just seeing something new. But I think first things first, I'd like to see Necro get unbanned.
I am on the side of I'm also on the side of more unbans. And here's my thought process. This was my thought process when I was thinking about these questions. Now I knew that there was going to be, 50 people answering these questions, and a lot of them were going to have similar opinions. My thoughts have moved from everybody is like, if they're not going to make change, if they're going to keep designing for Commander, which is what they're going to do, and they're not going to do any inherent rulings within mechanics that they make for Commander to differentiate them from 1v1. So like an example of that would be if they said for initiative, right? If instead of it just existing as it exists, where it's designed for 4-player, making it objectively busted in 1v1, right? Like initiative is objectively busted. I don't think there's any, whether or not that's good or bad and should be allowed or not. In 1v1, it's objectively a busted mechanic. I think that if they're not going to put inherent rules in mechanics like that are designed for Commander, where it says, if you have more than one opponent, you take the initiative, right? Like an additional line of text that says, if you are in a non-1v1 game, you get to do this thing. If not, you don't. And it's therefore, it is no threat to a 1v1 format because it is a mechanic that they can design without having to think about how it's going to impact Legacy or Vintage or whatever. So if they're not going to do that, then that means that designing for a 4-player game, there's just going to be more busted stuff coming in. Literally, all of the most busted shit we get now is just Commander product stuff. Whether it was earlier in the year in 2022 with Captain Cannoneer during Kamigawa, or now at the end of the year with Initiative, right? Like the majority of the busted things we get, like there was Displacer Kitten in the middle of that like had its time in the sun that's still like sort of fringy in the interim, like and then of course like there are some mistakes that they make in standard product that they did during like the Eldraine time, but since then it's been majority Commander product, and the Commander product is just going to give us more and more busted stuff as they keep printing. So rather than being like, okay, we need to look at every single Commander product that they make now and go, is this thing that they designed for 4-player busted in 1v1? Most likely, yes. Do we have to now look at it as something that has to go? I think that if they're going to continue to do that, then we're just going to continue moving in a higher power level format. Like every time they push the boundaries designing for 4 players, that means 1v1 is inherently going to get more and more broken.
Yeah.
And if we're going to get more and more broken, like if we're going to push the needle towards more busted, then I think more things that were busted in the past can come off, because those things that were busted in the past were busted in a less powerful format.
Yeah, and in a vacuum format that didn't include those cards, of course.
So if the cards that were banned that are on the ban list were banned in a time where those cards were busted in their environment, and the environment on the power level scale, if let's say we're at a 10 now, right? Let's say we're in the most powerful Legacy has ever been outside of Combo Winter. This is it. This is the pinnacle of power in terms of the format's history. Then if let's say Deathrite Shaman and Treasure Cruise and all of this shit were busted, and by comparison, that environment was an 8. Like if the needle keeps pushing towards more and more busted, then the cards that were broken back then are less and less powerful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the issue is cards that just destroy other archetypes. You know, I think that's to me is the biggest issue for some of these bans, is like having cards that like exist that only like just kill other archetypes.
What are those cards?
Well, I think it used to be that Deathrite Shaman was one of those cards, and it was because
Endurance exists.
No, it wasn't because of the graveyard. It was because of it was just you didn't play any other 1-drop, and you got to play 4 colors. So 3-color decks just weren't as good. Non-black control decks just didn't exist for the most part. That weren't miracles. I think when you put a card like that in, it coalesces so much of the format towards just like, this is 4 cards that must be played, and then extra stuff. So I agree that like on power level that Deathrite Shaman isn't too powerful, but I think that on just homogenizing the format towards one thing, I think that's another part that has to be taken into consideration. You don't want the whole format to just be like 5-color or 4-color Deathrite Shaman plus, you know.
Well, here's an example of where I'm at looking at. See, and this is where I think like when we talk about bans, we have to look at bans we have to look at cards coming off the ban list in the context in which they will come out, not the context in which they were banned. Because the context in which they were banned,
for sure.
Deathrite homogenized the format and was obviously the best thing to be doing.
But
the
format would it now, not? You believe it would not homogenize the format now if it came out? You think people would just move on from Deathrite Shaman and only play, you know, 2 colors and have worse fixing?
I'm saying that if let's say the 3 best decks in the format right now, right, are Delver, 4-color, and Initiative, right? Mm-hmm. Deathrite does not have, at least it would not seem to me that Deathrite has a home in Initiative.
Probably not.
If Deathrite has a home in Delver, hasn't everybody been clamoring for Delver to go back to 3 colors so they can get cut?
Have they? I don't think that they care so much about Delver being 3 colors as much as they care about the fact that Delver is at best always going to be blue and red and something else. Like at least blue and red, and then maybe something else. So what you're doing is just making Delver a Grixis deck again.
I'm saying that like if these cards were to come out, like in the shell that Delver is right now, right? Mm-hmm. So you have Delver, DRC, and let's say Deathrite Shaman came off. What are you removing to play Deathrite Shaman? Are you just cutting your Delvers?
I don't know, because I don't really play Delver anymore, so I don't know. You'd probably just remove a 2-drop. Like you wouldn't play Iconoclast if that's what you're playing.
Okay, so you're moving Brazen Borrower. Like the list right now
that makes sense. It's like Delver, DRC, Brazen Borrower, because at the end of the day, you're probably going to be you're going to get a bigger advantage with Deathrite Shaman, and you're going to be removing like you're probably going to switch to 3-drops somewhere in there too. So like,
so I don't know. Be soft to Merit Lage. You want to just like you just want to like concede that matchup, or concede points in that matchup,
probably,
and then gain it elsewhere.
Yeah, gain it elsewhere. I mean, I think that you can still play Brazen Borrow in the sideboard. You know, you're going to have the mana advantage over people. And we've seen time and time again that's what wins games.
Here's an example, right? Okay, so 4-color. What is the color that 4-color doesn't play?
Generally white.
4-color plays white, bro. Come on, there are Swords to Plowshare's Prismatic Ending deck.
Well, when Deathrite Shaman was a deck, it was white.
Right. Back when you had Leovold Deathrite Shaman 4-color check pile, there was no white. Nowadays, 4-color is very clearly it's a blue-white. It's a Bant deck splashing red, right? For Minsc and Boo and Pyroblast and EI.
Correct. Yeah.
They're not playing black.
They don't need the black.
They're playing 2 Wasteland. They're playing 2 Wasteland and a Life of Malone and a Caracas because they need to be able to deal with Caracas. Caracas hoses their strategy. All right. Like, if 4-color wants to adopt Deathrite Shaman, what are they doing to their mana base to adopt black?
They're adding 1 black mana source to it and changing nothing.
So
you don't need black mana to make Deathrite Shaman good. We've proved that with green, you know.
So they're going to splash black. So they can't remove instants and sorceries from the yard at that point, right? Like
they still can.
They can off of a single mana source.
Yeah.
What are they cutting for it? What's the mana source that they're cutting for it in their mana base?
1 Wasteland, let's say. I mean,
I'm attacking you with questions to say that Deathrite Shaman doesn't naturally fit into any of the top decks without making some major deck building overhauls that affect are significant affectations to the deck build, the decks that we currently see.
Aren't interesting in any way.
They're not?
Are not interesting in any way. We've seen that before. We've seen that before. It's not interesting.
How many Uros do you play now if Deathrite Shaman is back in the format and it checks it? Do your Murktides get worse because Deathrites exist? Oh man, if I'm playing a Birds of Paradise, do sweepers get better?
They probably don't get worse.
They don't get worse, or they do get worse?
I don't think that Murktides get worse.
I think the fact that you and I don't have a clear understanding of what
means
would happen
unbanned Deathrite Shaman means
is an actual good argument for an unbanning, right? I'm being totally serious. If you go turn 1 Deathrite and I go turn 1 Initiative, am I doing the more powerful thing, or are you doing the more powerful thing?
I would rather see both those things go.
Which is totally fine. I'm saying that, like,
if it came down to Deathrite Shaman or no Legacy as a format, I would be like, let's get rid of Legacy, I guess. That's how I feel about Deathrite Shaman.
It's also similar to if Treasure Cruise came off the ban list, right? Okay. I'm not advocating for it. I'm saying if it came off the ban list.
Why not?
What deck's playing Treasure Cruise?
I mean, Blue-Red Delver's going to play Treasure Cruise.
Okay, so you're going to concede Murktide.
Splash for Treasure Cruise.
You're just
any deck that can play Treasure Cruise is going to play Treasure Cruise.
I agree that they should, but so you're not going to play Murktide?
Why not play both? We've learned that you can put 4 Treasure Cruise in a deck and it just feeds itself. So who cares?
So what deck building concession are you making if looking at the Blue-Red Delvers list as they stand, right? We're looking at the Blue-Red Delver list that won Eternal Weekend. What cards are you taking out to fit Treasure Cruise in order to
I can't begin to answer that question because
I'm
not playing the deck and I'm not familiar with it enough to say, like, this is like you're like Ben Shapiroing me by asking me like
I'm not Ben
fast
Shapiroing
questions.
you. I'm not Ben Shapiroing you.
I don't have the answers because I'd have to actually do the research.
Ben Shapiro is an abysmal human being. I'm not strawmanning you. I'm not strawmanning you in an argument.
Phil. I'm just saying that is the tactic to like ask a question for someone who has not done the research but has an opinion. I guarantee you I could come up with why you would throw a Treasure Cruise into any other deck and what you would remove from it if I had the time to do it. But like our viewers definitely don't want to watch me like look at deck lists for the next 20 minutes to figure that out.
I'm saying that the top decks, like Fast Combo is unlikely to play Treasure Cruise, right? They're looking to kill you before a Treasure Cruise happens.
Yeah.
Initiative is not playing Treasure Cruise. They don't fill their yard. They're not in the color. Delver could play Treasure Cruise, but there's tension with Murktide. Are they building to? And if they're trying to maximize both, are they doing shit that really folds to graveyard hate because they're already in DRC Murktide? Are they playing Thought Scours? Like, what's the deck building concession?
I did very well with Hooting Mantles and Treasure Cruise in my deck.
Hold on. If 4-color wants to play Treasure Cruise, are they conceding Uro? How much of their deck do they like? Again, are they then just going to get massively hosed hard by graveyard hate? Like, do players have to like maximize more endurance if both Delver and 4-color are going to be harder on the graveyard? Where you see what I mean? Like, there isn't
an impossible question to answer because that is a card that warps the entire format around itself. That's like saying, what would you do if Tolarian Academy got unbanned? It's like, yeah, I'd play a butt ton of artifacts and see what happens.
Tolarian Academy enables turn 1 kills, though.
Sure.
Treasure Cruise can't enable a turn 1 kill.
I'm just saying,
Shaman is not going to enable turn 1 kill.
But the entire format would warp around that one card, which is again why I think that cards like that should not be. And I know you're not advocating for unbanning Treasure Cruise, but I'm saying cards that do that, whether or not they're powerful or not, they're at least powerful enough to make every other deck in the format stand up and take notice.
I'm saying that I think those cards coming off would actually create more diversity in the format because they don't naturally slot into the top decks. Therefore, if you want to play them, they would be they of course would become very powerful things to do. Like if you're trying to be the Treasure Cruise deck and maximize Treasure Cruise, cool. It's very difficult to maximize both Treasure Cruise and Murktide. You may be different decks. You may want to be doing different things, in which case you would attack a Murktide deck different from a Treasure Cruise deck unless you're actually looking to hose the graveyard. The same thing with Deathrite Shaman. Deathrite Shaman doesn't naturally fit into any of these decks without making some amount of concessions, and they would also check two of the most powerful tools in the format between Uro and Murktide, or checking Delirium or what have you. Like I would imagine that you would probably cut endurances in order to make room for Deathrites, but if you're playing a mana dork and you're opening yourself up to more removal, like, okay, well now if you go into Deathrite and remove endurance, does your Delver matchup get worse? Like, is there a discussion to be made? No longer is it, oh, this is actually just objectively better. There are positional advantages to both now. Yeah. Whereas in the context of when those cards got banned, they got banned because they were the best thing. It was just the best thing, right? It's similar to like nothing really competes with Grizzlebrand, right? Like maybe in a world you would argue that like some context Archons may be a little bit better, like in certain positions, and but like if you're turn one and you're putting Grizzlebrand into play, right? Yeah. If Grizzlebrand wasn't in the discussion,
if you have a choice, it's Grizzlebrand.
If Grizzlebrand was gone though, you would have a discussion about like, okay, what is the format? Which is the best fatty to put in against what I expect the field to look like? Yeah. And then there's interesting discussion to be had about what the best thing is. That's an advocation for that Grizzlebrand is actually limiting deck diversity.
I agree. I mean, I would not argue with anybody who said ban Grizzlebrand. I just don't think that the deck is powerful enough that I care.
I honestly don't remember what I answered for this question, but I would say that I think I just put in unban everything.
Yeah, probably. I just said unban everything. Down.
And the reason for unban everything is that all of the stuff that was on the ban list was banned. I mean, aside from shit like Ragavan and like stuff in recent times that have been banned, like Oko, Ragavan, like
unban everything but vintage restricted cards. Let us endure chaos.
Yeah, I think that like the idea here is, if it wasn't banned in the context that we're in, which is the world that we're in, right? Oko and Astrolabe were banned in the recent world of the power of the format. They create unhealthy play patterns. Yeah. Same thing with Ragavan, all that stuff. The cards before, I think, were the most powerful thing in less powerful times, and to gauge what and it's impossible to realistically gauge how powerful those cards would be in a format that has been power crept significantly in the last 3 years. And so I think that if anything, more so than more so than banning initiative, more so than looking at anything like Murktide or EI, I think looking at those cards to come off and check how they would affect contextually the format and go from there would actually be more interesting than let us just remove the most powerful things, and then the most powerful things just remain the most powerful because they just adopt whatever the second thing underneath the most powerful thing is. You know, like if EI goes, Delver just adopts whatever the next most powerful card advantage thing that they can adopt is, which is literally anything that they want. It's whatever the best thing is. Yeah. And we don't know what it is because EI is currently the best thing, right? So, but I guarantee you they'll find it right afterwards. You know, it's like, if initiative is gone, okay, well, you just removed then you're just acknowledging a mistake in the mechanic, and then it goes, and then anything that was interesting about initiative and creating deck diversity amongst the format, well, that's just off the table now. We just
go back to 80 card death and taxes at that point.
Is whatever it may be. But like, I think getting rid of those tools, you just go back into a format where people were already complaining about, like, before initiative came in, everybody was like, well, Murktide, EI, and Daze are all reasonable things to look at on the chopping block. And it's like, well, if you just remove the initiative, then we just go back to that discussion. If you remove initiative and something out of Delver just remains the best thing like always. They just adopt the next powerful thing.
Yeah.
4-color will just adopt the next powerful thing. I think that, like, in terms of ban discussion, we need to unban the stuff that was too powerful back in the day when Legacy was underpowered compared to what it is now.
I will Agree. I'll agree with that on the idea that we can at least unban this stuff and see for a time, but people need to pay attention to that when they unban stuff. If you look at Modern, they were like, we'll just unban Golgari Grave Troll, and then they printed a bunch of dredge stuff that like made just absolutely no sense. Like they were just like, dredge hasn't really been a thing for like 5 years. Let's get Golgari Grave Troll back out, and they were like, and we'll support it by printing like Hogak and all these other cards, and they immediately had to turn around and reban it. Like
I think the issue,
they need to be paying attention to the cards and seeing what's out there. And just because a deck is winning doesn't mean it like the cards in it need to be banned. You know.
I would say that the example of Golgari Grave Troll being the card that came off the ban list and then back on the ban list isn't necessarily one that's comparative to any of the other cards that we would consider taking off the ban list.
My point there is just that at least they took it seriously and realized it immediately. But totally. If you're going to make that decision, you need to make that decision again fast and not let the format just sit stagnant for like a whole year while people endure that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I'm saying that like Golgari Grave Troll, it's like that one just is clearly easy to see.
Yeah.
If you unban Golgari Grave Troll, nothing like it's going to enable one thing, and it's going to be a busted, broken thing. Right. That's the only thing that card does. It's not like it's going to create any kind of deck diversity outside of introducing a busted thing. Whereas all of the other cards that we're talking about, they're powerful, but they're not going to introduce necessarily broken, busted shit that isn't going to churn the format in a helpful or interesting way.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to question number 3. So what are your thoughts on the initiative mechanic? Is it good or bad for Legacy? I think we can just sum this up with, I think it's bad, but it could be fixed.
Yeah, my thing on the initiative is more about how they need to look at the mechanics that they're designing for 4-player. And it's like, okay, if you're introducing a mechanic and you expect that every time you advance in the dungeon is going to be powerful enough because you're expecting to last 3 combats instead of 1 combat. And so that if you reduce the amount of time that it's going to take for you to move through the dungeon by 4 times, like you're going to move through the dungeon 4 times faster.
It's even bigger than that because you have to endure other people possibly attacking and taking the initiative, right? And then you also have to endure the fact that they're going to try and kill you. So it's like double. It's doing like 6 times the work, you know.
Yeah, I'm saying that like that's what I'm saying is that if you're going to design those, it's less so like is initiative good or bad for Legacy? Good or bad in what legacy are we trying to create? It goes back to the health thing. Like, is it a good mechanic? I don't necessarily think that it's an interesting mechanic. It's a snowballing mechanic, and those suck. At least from my perspective. From my perspective, snowballing sucks. It's a mechanic we can't interact with, right? Once it's introduced, the game is dictated by it. I think that's uninteresting. So it makes the game, every time you play initiative, the game is always the same. The only thing that matters is the initiative, and that's it. Like, does it do interesting stuff? Like, it doesn't do anything else that any other deck does, right? Like, no other deck is doing a busted, uninteractive mechanic that dictates the game. They play cards that are uninteractive that dictate games, but this is a whole different thing. This is an emblem it's a whole different zone. It's not even, just, it exists. I think it's good or bad for Legacy?
I would remove emblems from the game completely, or at least make them count as enchantments or something.
I think initiative is bad for Legacy because, not because I think it's too powerful, because it is not designed for the format. It is designed for 4-player. And I think if you're designing for 4-player in 1v1, it is going to be a different experience than what the designers intended. And so I think that the lesson from initiative is this sort of thing too powerful? I think it's the design team needs to recognize that if you're going to introduce cards designed for 4-player into 1v1, you have to put something along the lines of, if you have more than one opponent take the initiative. You have to put fail safes if you're not sure how this how a mechanic is going to affect 1v1 if you're not going to test for it. Just give yourself that valve.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one. While you're answering this one, Phil, I need to run downstairs and grab the birthday present that my nephew got me to answer this question properly. On a scale of 1 and go for the eyes, how hard would you fling boo at your enemies?
Yeah, so this was a throwaway question, but I think that it's a discussion on like Where do we think Minsc and Boo is in the format? Do we think it's a healthy card because it is also a commander card? It was designed for 4 players. Like the way that they intended for Boo to get maximized was you were going to make your 4/4 and then have to survive 3 combats before you get to untap with Minsc in order to attack for 7, which is 11 points of damage, or attack them for 4 and fling it. So it's represents 12 damage in 4 cards over the course of 2 turn cycles, which is again more powerful than anything else we've seen from a planeswalker. So is it good because it's in not blue? Maybe. Is it interesting or like is it a compelling card? Again, I think it's another one of those cards that's snowbally and broken, right? Like is it too powerful for the legacy? No. It's powerful, but it's not too powerful. Is it an interesting design? I'm on the side of Minsc is an extremely uninteresting design in terms of it just snowballs and asks nothing of you, right? You just slam it in. It does all of the work for you. It literally says like put a thing on a creature with trample and haste that it gave you. It is snowbally in a way that I think is uninteresting because it doesn't ask you to do anything other than play green and red in your deck.
So before the podcast started, we were talking about Minsc and Boo, and I think this card, it's like, man, it's so close to being more interesting because it's asking it's asking people in the format to not get punished by this card by playing Lightning Bolt, right? But that's not what we should be. We should be pushing more people to be playing Blue Red Delver at this point. I believe.
But also, it's not even that. It's like, okay, like if you play a Minsc and Boo and it gets bolted, like, okay, it was Bolt killed a threat like that, but Bolt kills all kinds of threats. It's not like, oh wow, look at this fail safe that we have. Like, yes, of course, removal kills things. Like that's not like. It's like if I were to going back before Minsc was printed, if I play a Jace and plus it to play around Bolt, 4 mana Fate Seal is not a good card.
No. I did want a quick shout out to my nephew who apparently watches the show. He's 12, and he saw the All I Want for Christmas is Boo video, and he got me this for Christmas.
There you go. Look at that.
That's pretty
token.
Cool.
It's a pretty sweet token right there.
He ordered it from TCG Player. He was like, I don't know enough. I just taught him over the weekend how to play. So, but it was pretty cool that I got like a Boo because he saw the video. On a scale of 1 for the go for the eyes, I'm always going for the eyes though.
Yeah, I think that like is Minsc too powerful? No, but I think it's representative of, again, they are designing for Commander and it is affecting Legacy in a way that I think is negative.
I have for a long time wanted a card like this to be in the format so that you could have like a rug control deck, because that was my biggest gripe back in the day. Is like there's just the options are there, but they're not that good.
But there is no rug control deck though.
Yeah, well, no, it's true.
Didn't produce that.
This is a 4-color. It's a 4-color deck.
It's splashing
for sure.
It's a Bant deck that splashes.
I 100% agree. But if that card costs like 2 red and a green, if it was like a 3-mana card that cost 2 green and well, I guess 2 green and red wouldn't change anything. But they could do things to make that card not be as like easily splashable, or like 2 green and 2 red. There you go. Now you really have to be committed. People would probably just not even play it. You probably never would have seen play if it didn't have those 2 colorless mana symbols in it as well. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you on this. Is that the card snowballs fast, and I don't know. Like, I want games to be over once you play your big splashy card. So I don't know. Is this any worse than Grizzlebrand as far as like a finisher is concerned? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they're comparative, really. I mean, I think that.
I feel any different when one of these when this hits the board than when Grizzlebrand hits the board? If I don't have an answer immediately, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, well, Grizzlebrand, the game ends on the spot.
Yeah.
Where I think that like the issue is in my mind, the whole like there's the classic argument in Legacy where it's like, well, if it costs 3 or 4 mana, it should win you the game. And it's like, no, it shouldn't. Not on a single card. the cards that auto win on the spot that are 3 and 4 mana, like from that like the idea that well, if it costs 3 or 4, it should win you the game.
Yeah, and you're like, bending your entire deck around show and tell.
You're bending your whole deck.
Yeah.
Like show and tell didn't win you the game unless you bent your whole deck. Allure didn't win you the game unless you bent your whole deck. Yeah. Like any of the other like big massive spells, like Dream Halls didn't win you the game unless you bent your whole deck. Like the cards historically that are like, well, it's really expensive, so it should win you the game on the spot. They don't by themselves. Natural order doesn't win you the game on the spot unless you bend your deck.
Yeah.
The cards now that are 3 and 4 mana, they don't ask you to do anything. Which is why I think that they're from my point of view, they're uninteresting. They're just snowbally. Like Oko asked you to do nothing. Minsk asks you to do nothing. These cards are not compelling. They're just snowbally powerful on rate. And I don't think that just because it costs 4, you deserve or should win the game because you have it. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, let's talk about number 5. Do you have any cool spice for the current format? Or any sweet tips for players new to Legacy? So I do have actually two answers to one answer for each of these. Cool Spice is my Haywire Might in 8cast. That was working great. It's a great mirror breaker. It's also just a really solid like way to beat on decks that are doing damage to you, so you can stay in the game. Haywire Might in 8cast. Sweet tips for new players to Legacy. Check out our and we'll be doing another one of these really soon, a budget deck episode. But check out, about this time last year, we put out a budget deck episode that had all of our budget decks, and you can check out those budget decks on MoxField.com.
What's MoxField.com?
MoxField.com is an amazing website where you can check out your where you can add your decks, share them with friends, and also you can add. You don't even need to use your computer. You can use your phone. You don't need an app. You can use your computer if you want to. It works on PC. It works on Mac. It works on Android. It works on iPhone. It works on anything, and it's super easy to use. It's good looking, and it has a lot of really cool features like seeing the cost of everything, which many decks websites do, but the site looks wonderful as well. It's easy to share on there, and also you can add considering cards. It's just an all-around great thing that you should be using. MoxField.com. You can check out our deck lists below. If you go to the Eternal Durdles one, you'll find our budget deck list there.
Hell yeah, fuck yeah, bro.
So that's my advice to new players in the format. Use MoxField.com and then go to our the Eternal Durdles deck lists and check out the budget deck list, because that's going to help you determine the style of decks that you might want to play, or at least get some good starting points.
Yeah, there you go. MoxField.com. Do it. We both have them. Eternal Durdles has them, and the MoxField is great, and it's only going to get better.
Phil, did you have any cool spice? I feel like St. Catherine was your cool spice, right?
I mean, St. Catherine,
Triumph is definitely
now? Triumph is the truth for sure. I don't know, man. I mean, I've also any advice for new Legacy players: play what you like. You know, like everything that we've talked about today, like it can feel tilting or constructive based on how you position yourself. If you want to feel tilted, you'll feel tilted.
Yeah.
If you want to feel like you have a challenge to overcome, and you know, you want to try to see if you can adapt what you like to play to be able to attack that environment, then it will feel purposeful and constructive. So play what you like, and then try and adapt what you like to be able to compete and see if it's doable. And the thing is that usually it is, as long as you aren't, if you don't get married to something that isn't contextually good in a given format. So an example, I love me some Miracles. Counterbalance is my favorite card to play with. Counterbalance in an initiative meta is nonsense. It is unplayable in a format, main deck at least, where initiative is the best thing to be doing, because initiative skips over 1s and 2s, and counterbalance is very good at stopping 1s and 2s. So you will lose games if you play counterbalance in the main. But that doesn't mean that I don't think Miracles is unplayable, and I continue to work on it, and I have fun working on it, and I enjoy even the games I lose when I'm playing with Miracles, because every time I lose, I am still learning something about how I can further the deck to improve against the meta. And then when the meta shifts again, the challenge will be renewed, and it will be an ongoing, continuous puzzle that is always fun to try and solve, whether or not it's solvable. So play what you like.
All right, and with that, I think we've got our first episode in for the year. Again, remember, please like and subscribe. You can check us out on Patreon. The answer to who won was our friend Joe C, who commented last week. I'm not going to give the last name just so I don't dox anybody. But I'll reach out to Joe, and Joe will be getting that ponder. Like I said,
ponder, bro.
Hit us up on Patreon, and you'll be included in the drawing. Comment, and you'll be included on the drawing. All you have to do is come to YouTube and comment on the episode. You could say "great episode" or "I agree," or whatever. You
Bill is wrong, and I hate him.
You'll be included in the raffle. We won this secret layer at the Eternal Weekend, and I wanted to just give it out to everybody. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, let it be known that anybody who wins a piece of that secret layer, that it is you will be earning a piece that has part of the spike that holds my head, because I lost to Zach in the finals in order to get that, for him to acquire that. So
side event gods.
I was trying to dream crush, and Zach just wasn't having it.
You can also check out our shop at Teespring, where we have the side event end boss t-shirts. We've got the Eternal Durdles t-shirts, better one than this that has the shadowing now. We got mugs, we got glasses, we got shower curtains, we got dog food bowl mats. You name it, it's on there. Go to Teespring, where we've got the site, and you'll see it's great. Get a t-shirt.
Other things that we need to know. Give a comment if, when it comes to the merch, we have merch, and we want people who are going to buy the merch to have stuff that they actually want to buy. So I want to know, if we made a shirt that had Eternal Durdles and said "what it do" on it, would you want that shirt, or would you think that's nonsense? For when Phil,
I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to have a "what it do" shirt before the next episode.
Wow. I was asking for feedback if people would actually buy it before we start.
What it do, indeed.
What it do.
If you buy one, comment below. Anyhow, wonderful seeing you, Phil. Happy New Year. And I think that does it for this week. Everybody, have a great week. Have a good New Year.
Hey, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out this other video. And if you can, please support us on patreon.com.